The phone rang just as Alex was walking out of his final law school exam. He almost didn't answer it. After 3 hours of intense concentration, all he wanted was to grab a coffee and celebrate with his friends. But something made him pull the buzzing phone from his pocket. It was his little brother, Tommy. "Alex, you need to come home." Tommy's voice cracked. "It's Dad." The world seemed to slow down around Alex as he stood frozen in the crowded hallway. Students brushed past him, laughing and talking about summer plans, but Alex couldn't move. "What happened?" he managed to ask, his throat suddenly dry. "He collapsed at work. Mom's at the hospital. She told me to call you." Tommy was trying to sound strong, but Alex could hear the fear in his 16-year-old brother's voice. "I'm on my way." The 2-hour drive home was the longest of Alex's life. He tried calling his mother several times, but she didn't answer. His sister, Lisa, didn't pick up either. His mind raced with possibilities. Dad had been working too hard lately. He'd mentioned some chest pain last month but brushed it off as heartburn. Alex should have insisted he see a doctor. When Alex finally pulled into the hospital parking lot, his hands were shaking. He nearly ran through the automatic doors and up to the information desk. "I'm looking for James Chen," he said, out of breath. "He was brought in earlier today." The look on the receptionist's face told him everything before she said a word. "Let me call someone to speak with you." Alex found his mother and siblings in a small waiting room. One look at his mother's face, and he knew. Dad was gone. A heart attack, sudden and massive, while he was inspecting a building site. By the time the ambulance arrived, there was nothing they could do. His mother Rose stood up when she saw him, her face pale and eyes red from crying. She didn't speak, just wrapped her arms around him and held on tight. His sister Lisa, just 19 and home from her first year of college, sat curled in a chair, looking small and lost. Tommy stood by the window, staring out at nothing. "I should have been here," Alex whispered. His mother pulled back and looked at him. No one could have known. It happened so fast. The next few days passed in a blur. As the oldest of 3 children, Alex took charge of the arrangements. He sat with his mother at the funeral home, picked out a casket, wrote the obituary, and fielded endless phone calls from relatives and friends. He stood beside his mother as she received visitors at their home, making sure she ate and took breaks when needed. He held Tommy when his brother broke down crying in the middle of the night, and he sat with Lisa as she sorted through old family photos for the memorial service. Through it all, Alex kept his own grief locked away. There would be time for that, later. Right now, his family needed him to be strong. The funeral was held on a Thursday. The church was packed with people from the community. James Chen had been well respected, a hard-working contractor who built homes and buildings throughout the small town. He'd coached Little League when the kids were younger and volunteered with the high school's vocational program. Friends and neighbors shared stories about his kindness, his work ethic, his sense of humor. Alex stood to deliver the eulogy, his hands gripping the edges of the podium. "My father was the hardest working man I've ever known," he began, his voice steady despite the ache in his chest. "He came to this country with nothing but determination and built a life for our family through sheer will and endless hours of work." He spoke about his father's journey from Taiwan as a young man, how he had started as a construction worker and eventually built his own company. He talked about fishing trips and baseball games, about the way his dad could fix anything, about how he never missed a school event despite working 12-hour days. What Alex didn't say was how terrified he felt now. His father had always been the family's foundation, the one who knew what to do in any crisis. Without him, Alex felt adrift, unsure if he could fill the enormous void his father left behind. After the service, people gathered at the Chen home. Neighbors brought casseroles and desserts. Friends hugged the family and shared more stories. Alex moved through the crowd, thanking people for coming, making sure everyone had food and drinks, watching over his mother and siblings from across the room. Late that evening, after everyone had gone and Tommy and Lisa had finally fallen asleep, Alex found his mother sitting alone at the kitchen table. She held a cup of tea between her hands, staring down at the steam rising from it. "You should get some rest, Mom," he said softly, sitting across from her. She looked up, her eyes tired but dry. You've been taking care of everyone else. Who's taking care of you? Alex shook his head. I'm fine, don't worry about me. You're just like him, you know, she said with a sad smile. Always putting everyone else first. I learned from the best, Alex replied, his voice catching. For a moment they sat in silence, the weight of absence heavy between them. What happens now? His mother finally asked. We take it one day at a time, Alex said, reaching across to hold her hand. Dad built a strong family. We'll get through this together. But even as he spoke the words, a nagging worry tugged at him. His father had been the family's sole provider. His mother worked part-time at the local library, but her income wouldn't be enough. Lisa was on a partial scholarship, but there were still college expenses. And the mortgage on the house. Alex wasn't sure where things stood with that. He pushed these thoughts aside. There would be time to figure out the practical matters. Tonight they just needed to breathe. The next morning Alex woke early. The house was quiet. He made coffee and sat at his father's desk in the small home office. He needed to start organizing paperwork, insurance forms, bills, the business accounts. His father had always handled these things. As the sun rose higher, casting long rectangles of light across the desk, Alex began opening drawers looking for files. In the bottom drawer, he found a stack of envelopes, bills many marked final notice. His stomach tightened as he opened one after another. The mortgage was 3 months behind. The business insurance payment was overdue. Credit card statements showed large balances. Alex sat back trying to make sense of what he was seeing. His father had always been so responsible, so on top of things. Had the business been struggling? Why hadn't Dad said anything? The sound of footsteps made him look up. Tommy stood in the doorway, hair rumpled from sleep. What are you doing? His brother asked, yawning. Alex quickly gathered the bills and put them back in the drawer. Just trying to get organized. Want some breakfast? As he made pancakes for Tommy, Alex's mind raced. He had been planning to start his new job at a law firm in the city next month, a position he'd worked toward for years. But now, looking at his younger brother still in high school, his sister just starting college, and his mother trying to hold herself together, he wasn't sure he could leave. Later that day, while his mother and siblings went to thank the pastor at their church, Alex returned to the office. He needed to understand exactly what they were facing. He dug deeper into the files, finding business records that showed declining profits over the past 2 years. Several clients had canceled big projects, and his father had been underbidding jobs just to keep his workers employed. A folder labeled Life Insurance caught his eye. Alex opened it, hoping to find some relief. Instead, there was a letter confirming the cancellation of the policy 6 months earlier. His father had stopped making payments. Alex closed his eyes, the reality of their situation sinking in. His father hadn't just left them without their emotional anchor. He'd left them with financial problems none of them had known about. When his phone rang, Alex saw it was David, his friend from law school. Hey man, how are you holding up? David asked. I'm okay, Alex replied automatically. Listen, I know it's bad timing, but Jenkins asked about your start date. They need to know if you're still planning to join next month. Alex looked around the small office, at the photos of his father with clients at construction sites, at the family picture from Lisa's high school graduation last year. All 4 of them smiling, his father's arm around Alex's shoulder, proud and strong. I need some time, Alex said quietly. Can you ask them if I can defer for a bit? They really want you, Alex. You were top of our class. But I don't know if they'll hold the position for long. I understand. Just see what they say. After hanging up, Alex sat for a long time, staring at the wall. His father had sacrificed everything to give his children opportunities he never had. He'd worked endless hours so Alex could go to law school without worrying about money. And all along he'd been struggling, bearing his burdens alone. Now it was Alex's turn to make sacrifices. He couldn't leave his family to face this alone. Somehow he would find a way to help them through this crisis, even if it meant putting his own dreams on hold. That evening, as the family gathered for dinner, Alex watched his mother place his Father's favorite dishes on the table, a tradition she said they would continue every Sunday. Lisa talked about returning to college next week. Tommy mentioned a science project he needed to finish. Life was moving forward, even as they all felt stuck in grief. Alex didn't mention what he'd discovered. Not yet. They deserved a few more days of peace before facing the harsh realities ahead. As they ate, Alex made a silent promise to his father. He would protect this family. He would find a way through the financial mess. He would make sure Tommy and Lisa could follow their dreams, even if it meant delaying his own. It was an unimaginable burden for a 26-year-old just finishing law school. But looking around the table at the people he loved most in the world, Alex knew he had no choice. This was what his father would have done. This was what it meant to be the eldest son. 2 weeks after the funeral, Alex sat at the kitchen table surrounded by stacks of papers. The morning light streamed through the window, catching dust particles that danced in the air. The house was quiet. His mother had gone grocery shopping with Tommy, and Lisa had returned to college the day before, though Alex had almost asked her to stay. He rubbed his eyes and looked down at the spreadsheet he'd created. The numbers didn't lie, and they told a story his father had kept hidden from all of them. The construction business was barely staying afloat. 3 major clients had backed out of projects last year, and his father had been covering payroll for his workers out of their personal savings. The second mortgage on the house had been taken, out just 8 months ago. Credit card debt had piled up. And most troubling of all, his father had been experiencing chest pains for months before his fatal heart attack, but had avoided seeing a doctor, likely because he'd let their health insurance lapse to save money. Alex closed his laptop and walked to the window. Outside, the lawn needed mowing. The flower beds his mother loved were overgrown with weeds. His father used to spend Sunday afternoons tending to the yard, whistling as he worked. Now, that task would fall to Alex or Tommy. The sound of the front door opening broke his thoughts. "We're home," his mother called. "Tommy, bring in the rest of the bags." Alex quickly gathered the papers and shoved them into a folder. He wasn't ready to tell her everything yet. His mother walked into the kitchen carrying 2 grocery bags. Her face was pale, her movements slow, as if each step required careful thought. Grief had aged her overnight. The vibrant, energetic woman, who had always kept their family running smoothly, now seemed fragile, uncertain. "Let me help," Alex said, taking the bags from her. "I bought ingredients for your father's favorite stew," she said, her voice catching on the word father. "I thought we could have it for dinner." Alex nodded, unpacking the groceries. "Sounds good, Mom." Tommy trudged in with more bags, his face sullen. At 16, he was struggling to process his grief. He'd been skipping classes, something he never would have done when their father was alive. "Can I go to Josh's house?" Tommy asked, not meeting their mother's eyes. She hesitated, then nodded. "Be back for dinner." After Tommy left, Alex's mother sank into a chair at the table. "I don't know what to do with him. He won't talk to me." "He's hurting," Alex said gently. "We all are." She nodded, then noticed the folder of papers Alex had hastily put aside. "What's all that?" Alex took a deep breath. He'd been postponing this conversation, but maybe it was time. "Mom, I've been going through Dad's business records and our finances." Her face changed, a flash of something, fear, perhaps, crossing her features. "And?" Dad was having financial problems. The business wasn't doing well. She looked down at her hands. "I knew things were tight. He was worried all the time, not sleeping, but whenever I asked, he said everything was fine." "Did you know about the second mortgage?" She looked up, shocked. "What second mortgage?" Alex pulled out the documents and placed them in front of her. "He took it out last year, and there's more. We're behind on the regular mortgage payments, too." His mother's hands trembled as she looked at the papers. "I don't understand. Your father always handled the money. He was trying to protect us," Alex said softly. "He didn't want us to worry. But why didn't he tell me? We've been married for 30 years. We could have faced this together." Alex had been asking himself the same question. His father had always been proud, determined to provide for his family. The thought of admitting he was struggling must have been unbearable. "What are we going to do?" his mother asked, her voice small. Alex reached across the table and took her hand. "I've been thinking about that. I called the law firm yesterday and asked to defer my start date." "Alex, no, you've worked so hard for that position. It'll still be there later," he said, though he wasn't sure that was true. "Right now, I need to figure out Dad's business. There are employees counting on those jobs, contracts that need to be fulfilled. You don't know anything about construction. I know about contracts, and I can learn the rest. Dad's foreman, Pete, has been there for years. He can help me." His mother shook her head, tears filling her eyes. "This isn't fair to you. Your father wouldn't want you to give up your dreams." "I'm not giving them up," Alex insisted, "just putting them on hold." The truth was more complicated. The prestigious law firm in the city had made it clear they could defer his start date by 3 months, but no longer. After that, the position would go to someone else. It was already a special accommodation, one they were making only because Alex had been at the top of his class. 3 months wasn't nearly enough time to sort out the mess his father had left behind. But Alex kept that to himself. His mother had enough to worry about. The next day, Alex drove to his father's construction company. The small office was attached to a warehouse where they stored equipment and materials. He'd been there many times, as a kid, trailing after his dad during school breaks. But he'd never paid much attention to the business side of things. Pete was waiting for him, a big man with calloused hands and a weathered face. He'd worked for Alex's father for over 20 years. "Thanks for meeting me," Alex said, shaking his hand. Pete nodded grimly. "Your dad was a good man. Best boss I ever had." Inside the cluttered office, Alex got straight to the point. "I need to know the real situation here, Pete. No sugarcoating." Pete sighed heavily. "It's not good. Your dad was underbidding jobs just to keep us working. Materials costs went up, but he wouldn't raise our prices. Said people in town were struggling too, couldn't afford to pay more." "What about the current projects? We've got 3 houses halfway built and a renovation at the community center. The clients have paid deposits, but that money's already been spent on materials and payroll." Alex rubbed his temples. "And the workers?" 15 guys, counting. Me. Most have families. Your dad missed payroll last week for the first time ever. He told me he'd have the money this week." Pete's voice cracked. "Then..." Alex nodded, understanding. "Then his father had died, leaving everyone in limbo. I need to see the books, the contracts, everything." For the next several hours, Pete walked Alex through the business. The picture that emerged was grim. The company was deeply in debt. Equipment needed repairs. Suppliers were demanding payment. And without someone qualified to oversee the actual construction work, they risked falling behind on deadlines, which would trigger penalty clauses in the contracts. By the time Alex left, the sun was setting. He sat in his car, overwhelmed by the magnitude of the problems facing him. He had a law degree, not business experience. He knew nothing about construction. Taking over his father's company seemed impossible. But letting it fail meant 15 families would lose their income. It meant clients would lose their deposits. It meant his father's life's work would end in bankruptcy and shame. Alex drove, home slowly, trying to make sense of his options. When he arrived, he found Tommy sitting on the front steps, his face tight with anger. "Where have you been?" Tommy demanded. "Mom's been calling you." Alex checked his phone and saw 3 missed calls. "What's wrong?" "Some guy came by earlier, said he worked for the bank. He was talking about foreclosure." Alex's stomach dropped. "Where's Mom now?" "In her room. She's been crying." Alex found his mother sitting on the edge of her bed, holding a framed photo of her and Dad on their wedding day. She looked up when Alex entered, her eyes red. "Is it true?" she asked. "Are we going to lose the house?" Alex sat beside her. "No, I won't let that happen. The man from the bank said we're 4 months behind on payments. He said if we don't pay by the end of the month, I'll handle it," Alex promised, though he had no idea how. That night, after his mother and Tommy had gone to bed, Alex called Lisa at college. He'd been debating whether to tell her about their financial situation, not wanting to add to her stress during finals. But she deserved to know the truth. "Hey, big brother," she answered cheerfully. "How's everyone doing?" "Managing," Alex said. "Listen, Lisa, there's something I need to tell you." He explained everything, the struggling business, the mortgage problems, his decision to defer his job. Lisa listened quietly. "I'm coming home," she said when he finished. "No, you need to focus on your studies. My family needs me. I can take a semester off." "Lisa, Dad worked so hard to make sure you could go to college. He'd want you to stay." "And what about what you want, Alex?" she challenged. "Dad would want you to take that law firm job too." Alex sighed. "It's different. I've finished school. I can work and come back to law later. That's not fair. Why should you be the only one making sacrifices?" Her words hit hard. Was he being noble, or was he being prideful like their father, taking too much on his shoulders? "Just finish this semester," Alex finally said. "We'll talk about next term when you come home for break." After hanging up, Alex opened his laptop again. He pulled up the spreadsheet showing their finances and added new information from his visit to the construction company. The deficit was staggering. Even if he liquidated his own savings, money, he'd set aside for an apartment in the city, it wouldn't be enough to catch up on the mortgage and keep the business running. He needed a plan, something creative, something his father, with all his determination and work ethic, would approve. Outside, the night was clear and full of stars. Alex stepped onto the back porch and looked up at the sky. "What would you do, Dad?" he whispered. "How do I fix this?" No answer came, just the soft chirping of crickets and the distant sound of a car passing on the main road. Alex knew his father, couldn't help him now. This burden was his to bear, these problems his to solve. Tomorrow he would start making calls to the bank, to his father's clients, to suppliers. He would find a way to keep the business afloat, to save their home, to protect his family. It was an unimaginable weight for someone so young, someone who had been preparing for a very different life. But as Alex looked back at the house where he'd grown up, where his mother and brother now slept, he felt a resolve hardening within him. He would not let his father's legacy end in failure. Whatever it took, whatever he had to sacrifice, he would find a way through this. 1 month after his father's death, Alex stood on the half-finished second floor of what would become the Miller family's new home. The morning sun beat down on his neck as he looked over the site. Workers moved around him, the sounds of hammers and saws filling the air. He checked his watch, almost time for his meeting with the bank. "Looking good, right?" Pete walked up, beside him wiping sweat from his forehead. "We're back on schedule." Alex nodded. It had taken 3 weeks of 14-hour days, but they'd caught up on the project deadlines. "The Millers are coming by tomorrow to check progress. They'll be happy. Your dad would be proud of what you've done here." Alex wasn't so sure. He'd made countless mistakes in the past month. Ordering the wrong materials, misreading blueprints, underestimating labor costs. If not for Pete's patience and knowledge, the business would have collapsed already. His phone buzzed, a text from his mother. "Don't forget Tommy's parent-teacher conference at 4. Another responsibility he couldn't afford to miss. Tommy had been skipping classes, his grades slipping. The school counselor wanted to meet with the family. "I need to head out," Alex told Pete. "Can you handle the delivery from Johnson's Supply?" "No problem, boss." Pete still called him boss, though. They both knew Alex was barely keeping his head above water. The drive to the bank took 20 minutes. Alex used the time to rehearse his pitch. He'd spent nights preparing a business plan, calculating exactly how much they needed to keep the construction company running and catch up on the mortgage payments. The bank manager, Mr. Wilson, had known his father for years. They'd played golf together on weekends. But business was business, and the bank had already given them more time than their policies allowed. "Alex," Mr. Wilson greeted him with a firm handshake. "How's your mother doing?" "She's hanging in there," Alex replied, taking a seat across the desk. Thanks for asking. I was sorry to hear about your father. He was a good man. Alex nodded, then opened his laptop. I've put together a plan for repayment. For the next half hour, Alex walked Mr. Wilson through his proposal. He'd secured 3 new small projects that would bring in steady income. He'd negotiated extended terms with suppliers. He'd even found a way to refinance some of the equipment loans at lower rates. Mr. Wilson listened, occasionally asking questions. When Alex finished, the older man leaned back in his chair. It's a solid plan, he said, better than I expected, but there's still a significant shortfall in the immediate term. I know. That's why I'm putting up my own savings as collateral. Alex slid a document across the desk. It's everything I have. Mr. Wilson picked up the paper, his expression unreadable. This was for your move to the city, wasn't it, for your new job? Yes. And you're willing to risk it all on your father's business? Alex met his gaze. It's not just his business anymore. It's our family's future. After a long moment, Mr. Wilson nodded. I'll need to run this up the chain. But I think we can work. With this. You'll have an answer by Monday. Alex felt a weight lift from his shoulders as he walked out of the bank. One crisis temporarily averted. Now for the next one. He arrived at Tommy's school just as parents were beginning to gather for afternoon pickup. The brick building brought back memories of his own high school days, his father attending every award ceremony, every parent-teacher night, despite his exhausting work schedule. The counselor's office was small but welcoming. Ms. Patel, a woman, in her 40s with kind eyes, greeted Alex and his mother as they entered. Tommy slouched in a chair, not meeting anyone's gaze. Thank you for coming, Ms. Patel began. I wanted to talk about Tommy's recent behavior and academic performance. The report was worse than Alex had expected. Tommy had missed 8 days of school in the past month. When he did attend, he was disruptive in class or completely withdrawn. His grades had dropped from mostly B's to D's and F's. Tommy, would you like to explain what's going on? Ms. Patel asked gently. Tommy shrugged, staring at the floor. Nothing's going on. Alex's mother reached for Tommy's hand, but he pulled away. We understand he's grieving, she said, her voice cracking slightly. We all are. Ms. Patel nodded sympathetically. Loss affects everyone differently, especially teenagers. But I'm concerned that Tommy is falling into a pattern that will be hard to break. What do you suggest? Alex asked. The school offers a grief support group for students, and I'd like to meet with Tommy individually once a week. She turned to Tommy. Would that be okay with you? Tommy gave another non-committal shrug. We also need to address the missed assignments, Ms. Patel continued. His teachers are willing to give him extra time, but the work needs to be completed. Alex's mother nodded. I'll help him catch up. But Alex knew his mother was barely managing her own grief. She'd returned to her part-time job at the library, but often came home exhausted, emotionally drained. I can help too, Alex said. We'll work out a schedule. As they left the school, Tommy walked ahead, hands shoved in his pockets. I don't need your help, he muttered when Alex caught up to him. I'm not a little kid. No one said you were, Alex replied evenly, but everyone needs help sometimes. Like Dad needed help? Tommy's voice was bitter. He didn't ask for any. He just worked himself to death. The words hit Alex like a physical blow. Was that how Tommy saw it? That their father had chosen work? Over his own health, over his family? Dad made mistakes, Alex said carefully. He should have told us about the financial problems. He should have seen a doctor. But everything he did for us. And now you're doing the same thing, Tommy said. Mom says you're at the construction site all day, then up all night with paperwork. You canceled your job in the city. You never see your friends anymore. He kicked at a stone on the sidewalk. You're going to end up just like him. Before Alex could respond, Tommy walked faster, pulling ahead and climbing into the back seat of their mother's car. The ride home was silent, heavy with unspoken words. That evening, after dinner, Alex knocked on Tommy's door. When there was no answer, he opened it slowly. Tommy was at his desk, headphones on, staring at his computer screen. "Can we talk?" Alex asked. Tommy reluctantly removed his headphones. "About what?" "About what you said earlier. About Dad working himself to death." Tommy turned his chair to face Alex. "It's true, isn't it? He was always working, always stressed, and he never told anyone he was sick." Alex sat on the edge of the bed. "You're right. Dad took on too much by himself. That was his way. He thought he had to handle everything alone. And now you're doing the same thing." "Maybe I am," Alex admitted. "But I'm trying to learn from his mistakes too. That's why I'm here now talking to you. That's why I asked Pete to help me at the construction company." Tommy was quiet for a moment. "Do you think we're going to lose the house?" The directness of the question caught Alex off guard. He'd tried to shield Tommy from the worst of their financial troubles, but his brother wasn't a child anymore. He deserved honesty. "I'm doing everything I can to make sure that doesn't happen," Alex said. "I had a good meeting with the bank today, and the business is starting to turn around. But you don't know for sure." "No, I don't know for sure. There are no guarantees, Tommy. But we're not giving up without a fight." Tommy nodded slowly. "I could get a job after school, to help out." "Focus on your grades first," Alex said. "That's the best way you can help right now. But I appreciate the offer." As Alex stood to leave, Tommy spoke again. "Alex, I'm sorry about what I said, about you ending up like Dad. I didn't mean it like that." "I know," Alex said softly. "And you were right to call me out. I need to be careful not to make the same mistakes." Later that night, Alex sat at the kitchen table with his laptop open, reviewing invoices. His mother came in, wrapping her robe tightly around herself. "You should get some rest," she said, putting a hand on his shoulder. "Just a few more emails to send." She sat across from him, her face tired but determined. "I spoke with Lisa today. She's worried about you." Alex sighed. His sister called almost daily, asking for updates, offering to come home and help. She shouldn't be. She needs to focus on her finals. She said, "You never talk about yourself anymore. Only about the business, the house, Tommy's, school." She asked if you ever sleep. "I sleep enough." His mother reached across and closed his laptop. "Alex, look at me." He did, seeing the concern in her eyes. "You've been amazing these past weeks," she said. "You've stepped up in ways I never could have asked of you, but I'm worried. You're 26 years old. You should be starting your career, living your own life." "Mom, let me finish. Your father and I always wanted more for you kids than we had. We wanted you to have choices, opportunities. The last thing your father would want is for you to sacrifice your future for his mistakes." "I'm not sacrificing anything," Alex insisted. "I'm just postponing things for a while." "The law firm called today," she said quietly. "They wanted to know if you'd made a decision about the position." Alex stared at her. "They called here? Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I knew what you would say. That you can't leave now. That the business needs you. That we need you." "It's true. Is it? Or are you hiding behind these responsibilities because you're afraid?" "Afraid of what?" Alex asked, his voice rising slightly. "Afraid of moving on. Afraid of living your own life while we're still struggling. Afraid of not being the perfect son." Her words cut deep because there was truth in them. Part of him did feel guilty at the thought of pursuing his own dreams while his family faced such difficulties. And another part was afraid. Afraid he would fail them. Afraid they would collapse without him. "The law firm needs an answer by Friday," his mother continued. "They can't hold the position any longer." Alex ran a hand through his hair. "I need to think about it." "Promise me you will. Really think about what you want, not just what you think we need." She stood and kissed the top of his head, the way she used to when he was a child. "We'll be okay, Alex, one way or another." After she left, Alex reopened his laptop. The screen glowed in the dark kitchen, numbers and words blurring before his tired eyes. Friday was just 2 days away. By then he needed to decide, His dream job or his family business? His future or his father's legacy? His phone buzzed with a text from Lisa. Checking in, how are you really doing? Alex stared at the message, unsure how to answer. The truth was complicated. He was exhausted, overwhelmed, constantly worried. But there was something else too, a sense of purpose he'd never felt before. Every small victory at the construction site, every bill paid on time, every moment Tommy opened up to him, these things mattered in a way that corporate law never could. Figuring things out, he finally replied. One day at a time. It wasn't a real answer, but it was the best he could offer right now. Because the truth was, Alex himself didn't know how. He was doing. He was caught between two worlds. Between duty and desire. Between his father's path and his own. And time was running out for him to choose. Friday morning arrived with a steady rain that turned the construction site into a muddy mess. Alex stood under the temporary shelter, watching as workers struggled to cover exposed materials. Another delay, another deadline in jeopardy. We need to call the Millers, Pete said, joining him. Tell them we'll be at least 3 days behind now. Alex nodded, feeling the familiar knot in his stomach tighten. I'll do it. You look terrible, Pete observed bluntly. When's the last time you slept? I sleep enough. Pete snorted. Yeah, just like your dad used to say, right before he'd fall asleep standing up. The comparison hit too close to home. Alex had been averaging 4 hours of sleep a night for weeks. Between managing the construction business during the day and catching up on paperwork at night, there simply weren't enough hours. The bank approved our payment plan, Alex said, changing the subject. As long as we complete the Miller house and the Thompson renovation on time, we should be okay. That's good news, Pete said, though his expression remained concerned. What about that law firm? Today's the deadline, right? Word had spread quickly among the workers about Alex's job offer. Some, like Pete, encouraged him to take it. Others worried about what would happen to the business and their jobs if he left. I'll call them after I talk to the Millers, Alex replied, avoiding the question. The truth was, he still didn't know what to do. Last night, he'd sat up late making lists of pros and cons, trying to approach the decision logically. But logic couldn't account for the guilt he felt at the thought of leaving, or the yearning for the life he'd worked so hard to achieve. His phone buzzed. A text from Lisa. Just finished my last final. Heading home tomorrow. Can't wait to see you all. He'd forgotten his sister was coming home for the weekend. She'd been asking for a family meeting, insisting they needed to discuss their situation together. Another text came through, this one from his mother. Don't forget your doctor's appointment at 2 r. Alex grimaced. The appointment had slipped his mind completely. His mother had insisted he get checked out after finding him asleep at the kitchen table 3 nights in a row, papers scattered around him. I need to head out early today, he told Pete. Can you handle things here? Pete nodded. Go home. Get some rest. The world won't end if you take half a day off. But as Alex drove away from the site, his mind raced with all the tasks still needing attention. The payroll was due Monday. They needed to order materials for the Thompson job. The subcontractor for electrical work was threatening to quit over late payments. He was so distracted that he nearly missed the turn to the medical center. The waiting room was half full when he arrived, and he used the time to answer emails. On his phone, Alex Chen, the nurse called finally. Dr. Harrison had been their family doctor for years. He frowned as he took Alex's blood pressure. A bit high, he noted. Your mother mentioned you've been under a lot of stress. Alex gave a short laugh. You could say that. The examination was quick but thorough. When it was done, Dr. Harrison sat across from Alex with a serious expression. Physically, you're in decent shape, though your blood pressure concerns me. But I'm more worried about the symptoms your mother described. Insomnia, loss of appetite, irritability, difficulty concentrating. I've had a lot on my plate, Alex said defensively. I understand you lost your father recently and you've taken on running his business. That's an enormous burden, especially for someone your age. I'm handling it, Dr. Harrison leaned forward. Are you? Because what you're describing sounds like burnout, possibly compounded by grief. Your father had similar symptoms before his heart attack. The comparison landed like a punch to the gut. Alex had been so focused on taking over his father's responsibilities that he'd never considered he might be following him down the same dangerous path. What are you suggesting? Alex asked quietly. First, I'm prescribing medication for your blood pressure. Second, I want you to talk to someone, a grief counselor or therapist. Third, and most importantly, you need to find a better balance. Delegate more, rest more, take time for yourself. Alex nodded mechanically, taking the prescription slip. He'd agree to anything to end this conversation that was hitting too close to home. On the drive back, his phone rang. The law firm. Alex stared at the screen for several rings before finally answering. Alex Chen speaking. Alex, it's Richard Jenkins. I'm calling about the associate position. Yes, I know today's the deadline. I just need a little more time. Actually, Jenkins interrupted. That's why I'm calling. We've decided to extend the offer for another month. Alex nearly swerved off the road in surprise. What? Why? One of our senior partners went to law school with your father. When he heard about your situation, he convinced the hiring committee to give you more time. Jenkins paused. We still want you, Alex. You were the top candidate for a reason. Relief washed over Alex. Thank you. I don't know what to say. Just let us know by the end of next month. And Alex, take care of yourself. We need you at full strength when you join us. When, not if. As if his decision was already made. Alex pulled into the driveway of his family home, his mind still processing the unexpected reprieve. The house looked different somehow. Cleaner, more alive. Flowers had been planted in the front beds and the lawn was freshly mowed. Inside, he found his mother in the kitchen with Tommy. They were cooking together, something that hadn't happened since before his father died. You're home early, his mother said, surprised. The rain shut down the site. Alex looked around. What's going on here? Tommy grinned, a rare sight these days. Lisa called. Said she's bringing a friend home with her, so we're making Dad's famous lasagna. A friend? Some guy from her study? Group, Tommy said with a shrug. Mom thinks it's her boyfriend. His mother swatted Tommy with a kitchen towel. I said no such thing. I just thought it would be nice to have a proper family dinner. For the first time in weeks, the kitchen felt warm, almost normal. The smell of tomato sauce and herbs filled the air, and Tommy was animated as he told them about acing his math test. Alex felt something loosen in his chest. Maybe things were starting to turn around. The bank had approved their payment plan. The law firm had extended his deadline. Tommy's grades were improving. Even the house felt more like home again. He joined them in the kitchen, chopping vegetables and setting the table. For a few hours, he allowed himself to forget about the business, the bills, the impossible decisions waiting to be made. Lisa arrived just before dinner, bringing with her a tall, serious-looking young man named David. He was in her economics class, she explained, and had offered to drive her home for the weekend. Just a friend, she whispered to Alex when David was out of earshot, though her blush suggested otherwise. Dinner was the most relaxed meal they'd had as a family since their father's death. They told stories, even laughed a few times. David fit in easily, asking thoughtful questions and offering to help with the dishes afterward. Later that evening, Lisa suggested they all sit in the living room to talk. Alex knew what was coming, the family meeting she'd been pushing for. I think it's time we all got on the same page about our situation, she began once everyone was settled. Lisa, Alex started, not wanting to ruin the pleasant evening with talk of financial problems. No, Alex, we need to do this, she insisted. For weeks now, you've been carrying everything on your shoulders. That stops tonight. Tommy nodded, in agreement. Yeah, we're not little kids. We deserve to know what's going on. Their mother reached over and took Alex's hand. They're right, sweetheart. We're a family. We face things together. Alex looked at their expectant faces and suddenly felt very tired. Maybe it was time to stop pretending he could handle everything alone. "Okay," he said, running a hand through his hair. "The construction business is in trouble. Dad took on too many projects at too low a price, trying to keep his workers employed during the economic downturn. We're behind on the mortgage payments for the house. I've been trying to turn things around, but it's hard." He told them everything then. The extent of the debt, the struggle to keep projects on schedule, the pressure from the bank. He told them about the law firm extending his deadline, and about his visit to the doctor earlier that day. When he finished, the room was quiet. Alex braced himself for their reactions: anger, disappointment, fear. But what came next surprised him. "I knew about the business problems," his mother said softly. "Your father didn't tell me everything, but I saw the signs. The late nights, the worry lines, the way he'd check the mail before I could see it." "Why didn't you say anything?" Alex asked. "Because I was hoping you'd figure it out on your own. That you can't do this alone, just like your father couldn't." She squeezed his hand. "I've been talking to Nancy at the bank. She's helping me understand our options." Tommy leaned forward. "And I've been helping Pete with the books after school. He's been teaching me about estimates and invoices." Alex stared at his brother. "When did this start?" 3 weeks ago. I go to the office instead of Josh's house sometimes." Tommy shrugged. "I thought maybe if I understood the business better I could help more. And I've made a decision about next semester," Lisa added. "I'm going to live at home and commute to campus. It'll save money and I can help around here more." "But your campus is an hour away," Alex protested. "David lives near there. We can carpool." She smiled at Alex. "It's my choice, big brother. You don't get to make it for me." Alex felt overwhelmed, but in a different way than before. All this time he'd been trying to protect them, to be the strong one. But they'd been finding their own ways to cope, to contribute. "The doctor said I'm headed for burnout," he admitted, "just like Dad was before." His mother's eyes filled with tears. "We're not going to let that happen, not again." "I don't know if I can keep the business going," Alex said, voicing his deepest fear. "I don't know if I can save the house." "Maybe you can't," Lisa said gently. "Not by yourself, but we're not asking you to do it alone anymore." Tommy nodded. "We're a team now." Their mother stood up and pulled a folder from the desk drawer. "I've been doing some research. There are options we haven't considered." She laid out papers showing refinancing possibilities, government programs for struggling businesses, even a potential buyer for part of the construction company. "You've been looking into all this?" Alex asked, amazed. "Did you think I was just sitting around feeling sad?" "I lost my husband, not my brain." There was a flash of the strong, capable woman she'd been before grief had temporarily overwhelmed her. For the first time in months, Alex felt something close to hope. Not because their problems were solved, they were still facing enormous challenges, but because he wasn't facing them alone anymore. The family talked late into the night, making plans, dividing responsibilities. When they finally headed to bed, Alex felt lighter somehow, as if the burden he'd been carrying had been redistributed to shoulders willing to share the weight. In his room, he sat on the edge of his bed and looked at the photo of his father on the nightstand. "I've been trying to be you," he whispered to the image. "But maybe that's not what you would have wanted." For the first time since his father's death, Alex slept through the night. 1 year had passed since James Chen's funeral. The seasons had changed, flowing from the sharp grief of winter through the cautious hope of spring, the hard work of summer, and now into a fall that felt somehow both melancholy and peaceful. Alex stood in the backyard of their new home, smaller than the old, with less land but more manageable payments. The maple tree was turning brilliant red, its leaves drifting down to carpet the grass. He held a cup of coffee, watching as Tommy helped their mother string lights around the patio for the gathering later that day. So much had changed in a year. So much had been lost, and yet somehow so much had been found too. The construction company had survived, though in a different form. After months of struggling to keep it afloat, Alex had realized a hard truth. He wasn't his father, and trying to run the business exactly as his father had wasn't working. Instead, they had sold half the company to Westbrook Construction, a larger firm that had been trying to expand into their area. Pete had stayed on as foreman, and most of the workers kept their jobs. The compromise wasn't perfect, but it had saved them from bankruptcy. The money from the sale had paid off the second mortgage and caught up the payments on the first, but they'd still needed to downsize, selling the family home and moving to this smaller house closer to town. "Need any help?" Lisa called from the back door, carrying a tray of glasses. "We're almost done," their mother replied, stepping back to admire the lights. "What do you think?" "Looks great," Lisa said. She had moved back home as promised, commuting to her classes 3 days a week. Her friend David was now officially her boyfriend, and he'd be joining them for the memorial gathering today. Tommy climbed down from the ladder, taller now at 17 than he had been a year ago. He'd grown in other ways too. More responsible, more open with his feelings. The grief counseling had helped, as had his newfound interest in construction. He was talking about studying engineering after high school, maybe coming back to work for the family business someday. Their mother had changed too. The paralyzing grief had gradually given way to a quiet strength. She'd increased her hours at the library and joined a widows' support group that met twice a month. Last week, she'd surprised them all by enrolling in a community college course on small business management. "I should have paid more attention to the financial side of things when your father was alive," she'd explained. "I don't want to be in the dark again." Alex's phone buzzed in his pocket. A text from his boss at Morrison Jenkins Law, where he'd been working for the past 6 months. The firm had kept their promise, holding a position for him even after he'd asked for another extension. But instead of joining their corporate division in the city as originally planned, he'd accepted a role in their smaller local office, specializing in construction and small business law. The compromise allowed him to pursue his career while staying close to his family. His mornings and afternoons belonged to the law firm, but his evenings and weekends belonged to his family and what remained of Chen Construction. "The cake is here," Tommy announced as a car pulled into the driveway. People began arriving around noon, friends, neighbors, former co-workers of his father. Pete came with his wife and children. Mr. Wilson from the bank stopped by with a fruit basket. Even Dr. Harrison made an appearance, nodding approvingly when he saw Alex looking healthier than he had in months. The gathering wasn't somber like the funeral had been. There were tears, of course. How could there not be when they were remembering what they'd lost? But there was laughter, too. Stories shared about James Chen's terrible jokes and his stubborn insistence on doing things his own way. "Your dad once spent 3 hours trying to fix a leaky pipe rather than call a plumber," Pete told Tommy. "Flooded half the warehouse before he finally gave up. But he saved $20, he said, so it was worth it." Tommy grinned. "That sounds like Dad." Alex watched his brother from across the yard, noting how much easier it was for Tommy to talk about their father now. The sharp pain had dulled to a gentler ache for all of them. As the afternoon went on, Alex found himself standing alone by the old oak tree at the edge of the yard. From here he could see everyone. His mother laughing with her friends from the library, Lisa and David helping serve food, Tommy showing Pete's kids how to throw a football. "There you are," a voice said behind him. Alex turned to see Mike, his father's oldest friend and former business partner. Mike had retired years ago, selling his share of the business to James. "Just taking a breather," Alex explained. Mike nodded, coming to stand beside him. Quite a crowd. James would have been pleased. "I hope so." Mike studied Alex's face. "You know, I've been meaning to tell you something. I was with your father the day before he died." Alex looked at him in surprise. "You were?" "He came to see me to ask for advice about the business. Things were tough, as you know better than anyone now." Mike paused. "He told me how proud he was of you. Said you were smarter than he ever was, that you'd go further in life than he could imagine." Alex felt a lump form in his throat. "He never told me that." James wasn't great with words, especially the important ones. Mike put a hand on Alex's shoulder. He was worried about burdening you with his problems, afraid you'd feel obligated to help and give up that fancy law job you'd worked so hard for. Which is exactly what happened, Alex said quietly. Not exactly, Mike corrected him. You found a middle path. You honored your father's legacy while building your own. That takes wisdom, son. Wisdom James would have admired. Before Alex could respond, Tommy called over to them. Alex, Mom wants to do the toast now. They gathered on the patio, glasses raised. Alex had dreaded this moment, unsure if he could find the right words. But as he looked around at the faces of family and friends, the words came naturally. A year ago, we lost a good man, a father, a husband, a friend. My dad wasn't perfect. He took on too much, worried too much, shared too little of his burdens. Alex's voice caught slightly, but everything he did out of love. He wanted to protect us, provide for us, make sure we had every opportunity. His mother wiped a tear from her cheek but smiled encouragingly. In this past year, we've learned some hard lessons. Alex continued. We've learned that strength isn't about carrying every burden alone, but about knowing when to ask for help. We've learned that family means sharing not just the good times, but the hardest ones too. Tommy nodded, standing tall beside their mother. Dad built a business from nothing. He built this family. And even though he's gone, what he built continues. Changed, maybe. Smaller in some ways, but stronger in others. Alex raised his glass higher. To James Chen, we miss you every day, but we're doing okay. We're taking care of each other just like you would have wanted. To James, everyone echoed, raising their glasses. After the toast, people began to mingle again. Alex found himself drawn into a conversation with some of his father's former clients. They were interested in how the partnership with Westbrook was working out, whether quality had been maintained. It's different, Alex admitted. But we've kept the core team together, and Pete makes sure everything meets the Chen standard. As the afternoon light began to fade, people gradually said their goodbyes. Lisa and David volunteered to drive some of the older guests home. Tommy helped take down decorations. By evening, only the immediate family remained, sitting around the patio fire pit as the autumn air grew cooler. I think it went well, his mother said, wrapping a sweater around her shoulders. Your father would have been pleased. Though he would have complained about the cost of all that food, Lisa added, with a smile, and said we didn't need to make such a fuss. Tommy chimed in. They all laughed, recognizing the truth in these observations. James Chen had been frugal to a fault, except when it came to tools or materials for his projects. I found something. Yesterday, their mother said after a moment of comfortable silence. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small notebook. It was in a box of your father's things I finally got around to sorting. She handed it to Alex. The notebook was worn, its cover faded. Inside, in his father's neat handwriting, were columns of numbers and dates going back years. What is it? Alex asked, puzzled. Look at the notes in the margins. Alex flipped through the pages. Beside various entries, his father had written small notations. Alex's law school tuition, Lisa's laptop, Tommy's baseball camp, Rose's birthday trip. With a start, Alex realized what he was looking at. His father had been tracking every penny he saved for his family's dreams and needs. Each sacrifice, each extra job, each luxury denied himself, all meticulously recorded. He kept this for 20 years, his mother said softly. Every time one of you mentioned wanting something or needing something, he would write it down and start saving. Alex passed the notebook to Lisa and Tommy, who leaned together to examine it. I had no idea, Alex said, his voice rough with emotion. That was James, his mother replied. He never wanted recognition for the sacrifices he made. He just wanted us to be happy. The night grew darker around them, stars appearing overhead. They talked late into the evening, sharing memories that now brought smiles along with the tears. Eventually, Lisa went inside to make hot chocolate, and Tommy followed to help. Alone with his mother, Alex asked the question that had been on his mind all day. Do you think he would be proud of the choices we've made? Selling part of the business, moving to a smaller house? She considered this thoughtfully. Your father was a proud man. Change didn't come easily to him, but more than anything, he wanted this family to be secure and happy. She reached over and took Alex's hand. Yes, I think he would be proud. Not because every decision was perfect, but because we made them together, as a family. When Lisa and Tommy returned with steaming mugs, they raised them in another, more private toast. To us, their mother said, for finding our way through the darkest year of our lives. To us, they echoed. Later that night, as the house grew quiet, Alex stood at his bedroom window looking up at the stars. The burden he had taken on a year ago had not disappeared. There were still bills to pay, tough decisions to make, moments when he missed his father with an ache that felt physical. But the unbearable weight had been redistributed, shared among shoulders strong enough to bear it together. They had found a new balance, a new way forward that honored what his father had built while acknowledging their own needs and limitations. "We're okay, Dad," he whispered to the night sky. "Not perfect, but okay, and getting better every day." Somewhere in the house, a clock chimed midnight. The day of remembrance was over. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new joys, new opportunities, to choose wisely and love well. Alex was ready to face them all,